Good morning. We have Professor G Haragopal with us, who's been our mentor, faculty member and professor for the past 3 years for the MPP students of National Law School. His anecdote stories of political economy class have made political economy a very treasured chapter in our lives. Today, we are here to know about his perspectives for the 70 years of independence in India. So we are completing 70 years of independence this time. So is there something that you would want to take note of, you would want the students to know about and think about and reflect, because there's so many things which have happened. There's been an entire paradigm change, a regime change in the past 3 years, and a lot of things have gone upside, and we've reflected so much on it. But are there any few things which you would want to talk about and bring into our notice, which is gone, which we don't notice usually in our general days of life?
I think, you see, when you want to understand contemporary situation, you should always understand it in a historical context. Now, freedom struggle in India, in my view, was an incomplete task, in the sense that the rights, freedoms, they haven't gone deep into the culture and roots of Indian society. Indian society remained caste-ridden, it is highly fragmented, divided, very hierarchical, and there are multiple structures of dominance within the social system. So when we talk of freedom, freedom is not only in the sense that we have become free from colonial master. Freedom also is how relations in the society are structured, how relations are mediated in the society. Whether human beings are fully free in their interaction with others, whether they have enough of freedom to express themselves fully, whether we have freedom where human beings can realize their full potential. So the parameters one has to use for freedom are not merely whether Indian state has become free from colonial masters, but whether the society has become free. I think this was the question which Dr. Ambedkar raised during the freedom struggle, and when he was arguing with Gandhi, his continuous argument was, if we get freedom, what about my people? Whether the Dalits of the country will enjoy the freedom, right, as equal citizens, or whether untouchability, discrimination continue. I think that's a very fundamental question, what he raised. So therefore, after the independence, freedom struggle continues. Freedom struggle, the achieving independence from British was one landmark, but that's not an end in itself. Freedom struggle is a process, and it doesn't have a terminal termination, but it normally is a continuous. And in post-independent India, while Constitution of India promised a very egalitarian society, an equitable society, a secular society, a democratic society. So Constitution has a very laudable, goals, and they have given us a mandate, or they have given us a vision. But I think there was one problem as far as India's independence is concerned, that we have reposed a lot of faith in the role of Indian state. And we characterize the Indian state as a transformative state. In other words, the state itself will transform India into a fully democratic, free, socialist India. Historical evidence all over the world is that state being an organized power or institutionalized violence, its capacity to transform a society seemed to be very constrained. State as a catalyst of development, I think is something which we thought it would do, but our own experiences in 70 years tell us that state may not be able to play that role. If the state is not able to play that catalyst role, then obviously what one looks for is that was the role of social movements. And during the last 70 years, you see a range of movements. Dalit movement, tribal movement, students movement, right? Regional movement, sub-regional movement. There are a range of movements. But if you look at the underlying aspiration of all these movements, the running theme would be they want more freedom, more dignity, more equality, more security, and a decent life. That would be the underlying aspiration. Now what has happened is that as the aspirations are going up, consciousness of the people is going up, I think Indian state, instead of standing by these movements, it's not given to the nature of the state. But framers of the constitution thought state would be able to do that. So state obviously got more interested in maintaining order rather than transforming the society. So in the process of maintaining the order, Indian state has passed so many repressive laws, starting with preventive detention to Armed Force Special Force Act, TADA, POTA, Non-Lawful Activities Prevention Act. Now anybody looking at these repressive laws would be amazed at the way the rights are negated, freedoms are negated. And today's state is far more powerful, not in terms of playing a transformative role, but in maintaining the order, if possible pushing the society a little more backward. And second important development as far as post-independent India is concerned is the way our economic model shifted from its egalitarian concerns to the growth. So 1980s is a decade where we have now taken India on a capitalist path of development. 91, of course, it has taken a fuller form. And this capitalist path of development is not confined to Indian territory in that sense. Capitalist path of development where you are importing capital from outside, you have opened up your market, and international financial agencies today dictate their terms, they have conditionalities, and the sovereign power of the people of India, which was the essence of the freedom movement. That sovereign power is largely surrendered or mortgaged to the international global capital. And therefore, sovereignty, which is a part of the preamble of Indian Constitution, is a compromise. And in the process of governance, gradually the society has become restless.
Yeah.
So because there is an unrest in the society, we have seen Mrs. Gandhi imposing emergency where freedoms are suspended, fundamental rights. But Mrs. Gandhi suspending fundamental rights, she has done it partly in the name of poverty, abolition of poverty, land reform, nationalization of banks, monopoly, restrictive trade practices. So at least it was done in the name of poor, in the name of poverty. That people of India reacted very strongly and defeated Mrs. Gandhi, which we thought would deepen the foundations of democracy. And people of India have given a clear message that despotic rule shall not be tolerated. Now I think the model shifted. From 91 we find that the rise of right-wing reactionary politics. So now Mrs. Gandhi's experiment or what she has done is perhaps getting repeated, but this time it's much more dangerous. Dangerous in the sense, now state has become terribly, authoritarian. If state is authoritarian, people can fight, but within the civil society, there are several vigilante groups which are silencing the dissent, beating up people, beating people to the death in front of cameras, in front of video, and they are showing all over the nation how somebody was beaten to death. And now there is a concerted attempt to create fear. And one of the hallmarks of democracy is vibrant institutions. But of all those institutions, one of the major strengths of democracy is higher education, universities. Now, if you notice, during the last 20 years, not only BJP, but during one Congress period, interference of the Indian state in the universities increased. It started with Kapil Sibal and continued with the BJP government. And now you find that all campuses, particularly universities which survived, which are vibrant, which have really, contributed enormously in training the younger generation, also contributing to knowledge. All those universities are in crisis. Crisis created not by necessarily Indian state, but crisis by the student groups within the university, which have an allegiance to the ruling party. Now, the outside, in the name of corporate action, those groups are at large, and you have unleashed so much of violence, and in universities you created a crisis. Planning commission has been abolished. Cabinet has been reduced to a mere, nominal body. They don't care for the institutions. And the police officer who was handling Kanai Kumar's case and handled in a most undemocratic manner, ended up as a member of Union Public Association. So, in other words, the way they are manning the institutions with their own people, any political party does it. Patronage is a part of politics. But these are the people who one really doesn't know have any respect for the Constitution of India, respect for democracy and freedoms. Now, this is a part of the model of development. See, when you want to push through a model which leads to accumulation of wealth, and we promised reduction of inequalities through constitutional mandate. But today, 1% of Indians command 60% of national income, right? And 60 crores people live on 10 to 11% of the GDP. So therefore, the inequalities have become very steep, and such an iniquitous society cannot be stable society. And to sustain these inequalities, you need a lot of force. That force is used both by the state and also vigilante groups. But on the positive side, there is a lot of resistance from different sections of the society, and the spirit of the freedom struggle continues. And that legacy continues, whether the Bhagat Singh legacy or the Gandhian legacy, or even Nehruvian, socialist vision, whatever. But I think Indian people are also resisting. Now history is at a critical turning point. Whether the resistance will enlarge the freedom, democratic space, deepen the foundations of democracy, and over a period of time we realize the aspirations of freedom struggle. Or whether India will have to pass through some sort of semi-fascist state and semi-fascist society. I think that is the challenge before people of India. And after 70 years, one faces this challenge, a very formidable challenge. But I am one of those who believe that people have a robust common sense. People have, I think, their own abilities, their own potential to fight it back.
So is there anything that you would want to say to your students? You can send a message if you want to.
Those who have passed out of this course,
Yes.
but still remember your classes with fondness.
Particularly, my own appeal to the students, particular public policy which I have been teaching, is that they are very bright, very promising. I would think that when you compare the students, they are comparable to the best students anywhere in the world. It's not that in terms of intellectual abilities, in terms of hard work, these students are extremely good. But this type of abilities, this type of merit and brilliance in India is dichotomized between social concern for the last marginalized sections of the society and brilliant mind is diverse. Because most of the brilliant people make a mark for themselves in life. But how the this type of merit, this type of creativity, this type of abilities, finally would match or would commit itself to the welfare of the larger millions of people, I think is the challenge. So whatever is the way of life or whatever the walk of life these students go, one, they have to remain very humane, humanize the walk of life into which you join, contribute to the process of transformation, at least don't stand in the way of transformation. If you can't contribute, it's okay, but don't become a stumbling block. But if you can contribute to the process of transformation, then Indian civilization will advance. And I think my advice to all the students is to be very sensitive to and this is a public policy course offered by Center for Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policies. It's not like a public policy course offered in other places, including places like Harvard and all that, and not like the public policy course offered by the private universities, where they're all trained for a corporate world. We are training, or we are trying to see that our students, even if they want to go to corporate, they will succeed. But we are not training them for corporate. We are training them as consultants or as catalysts of social change, trying to sensitize as much as possible. We only hope that when they go and when they complete their course, we wish that they are more humane, more sensitive, more concerned, and live as a very decent human beings, right, with a deep concern for the unfortunate, voiceless people. Now that would be our expectation. As a teacher, that has been my expectation, and that we would expect more from the public policy student because their capabilities are fairly high. That would be my advice to the public policy students.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.